Welcome to the wonderful channel where books are discussed. Yes, there is a summary of this book too. If you're ready, let's get started.
Victor Hugo's The Last Day of a Condemned Man is one of the most powerful anti-death penalty works ever written, a haunting monologue that dives into the mind of a man awaiting execution. Written in the form of a diary, this short but emotionally intense novel captures every thought, fear, memory, and desperate hope of a man counting down the final hours before his death. It is not a story of crime, but a story of conscience, morality, and the crushing weight of justice without mercy. The novel begins abruptly. The narrator, whose name is never given, tells us he has been sentenced to death. From the first line, the reader is thrown into his despair. He has only weeks, then days, then hours left to live. The absence of his name is intentional. Hugo wanted the condemned man to represent every human being facing death. He is not a monster or hero, just a man, thinking, fearing, regretting, hoping. At the start, the condemned man is in shock. He cannot believe his fate. His mind keeps returning to the moment the judge said the words death penalty. It echoes endlessly in his mind, louder than the chains that bind him. He writes because writing is his only escape, his only way to remain human while everything else is being stripped away. He describes the prison cell in heartbreaking detail, small, dark, and suffocating. Through the small barred window, he hears the outside world, the footsteps of guards, the cries of other prisoners, the sound of life continuing while his own world collapses. Time passes differently here, days and nights blur together. Every sound, every movement feels magnified, because each moment could be his last. The condemned man's thoughts swing wildly between denial and acceptance. At times he dreams of escape, imagining that some miracle will free him, that the king might pardon him, that someone will recognize a mistake. Then, just as quickly, he falls into despair, realizing that hope itself is torture. The more he hopes, the more unbearable his fear becomes. He reflects on his past, his childhood, his family, his love. These memories come to him like painful gifts. He remembers his little daughter, who is too young to understand that her father is going to die. He imagines her asking her mother where he is, and the thought destroys him. The greatest pain is not death itself, but the thought of being erased from the lives of those he loves. Throughout the diary, Hugo captures the psychological disintegration of a man losing not just his life, but his identity. The condemned man becomes obsessed with time, counting every minute, dreading every sunrise, because each one brings him closer to the guillotine. The ticking of the clock becomes a symbol of death itself, relentless and merciless. He listens to other prisoners, some laughing, some crying. He hears the priest who comes to offer him comfort, but he feels no faith, only terror. The priest's words sound empty to him. He doesn't want to hear about heaven or redemption. He wants to live. He wants to breathe, walk, and see the sun again. Hugo brilliantly shows how the instinct for life overpowers every philosophy when faced with death. As the days pass, the condemned man's thoughts grow more fragmented. He becomes hyper-aware of everything: the dampness of the walls, the smell of straw, the sound of his own breathing. His senses sharpen as his sanity weakens. He wonders why society needs to kill to prove that killing is wrong. They say it's justice, he writes. But what justice can there be in taking away a man's life to show that taking life is evil? This is Victor Hugo's central message, that the death penalty is not justice but revenge, and that every execution diminishes humanity as a whole. Through the condemned man's words, Hugo speaks directly to the reader, forcing us to feel the horror of waiting to die. Finally, the day of execution arrives. The guards come for him. He hears the noise outside, the crowd gathering to watch. This, perhaps, is the most chilling part of the novel: how ordinary people turn death into entertainment. Mothers lift their children to see the guillotine. Street vendors sell food. The condemned man realizes that his final act in life will be to serve as a public spectacle. As he is led through the streets, he feels the eyes of the crowd burning into him. Some stare with curiosity, others with hatred, others with pity. He cannot bear it. His mind races between madness and clarity. He thinks not of guilt or innocence, but of the absurdity of it all. The machine, the cheers, the rituals of death performed in daylight as if it were a celebration. At the scaffold, he glimpses the guillotine, the final, cold reality of his fate. He describes it with horrifying precision. The wooden frame, the blade gleaming in the sun, the smell of metal and fear. He feels faint. The priest prays beside him, but he can no longer hear. His only thought is of his daughter. The world narrows into silence. His last line breaks off suddenly, mid-sentence, as if death has cut not only his voice but the very text itself. The abrupt ending is deliberate. There is no closure, no redemption, only silence. Hugo leaves the reader standing at the foot of the scaffold, feeling the weight of what has just happened. It is an unbearable but unforgettable experience. The last day of a condemned man is not a crime story. It is a protest, a cry for human dignity. Hugo forces readers to look beyond law and punishment and to see the human being behind the crime. He strips away the illusion of justice and exposes the cruelty of a society that kills in the name of order. The condemned man's diary becomes a mirror, reflecting our own fears of death, guilt, and conscience. The novel is also revolutionary for its time. Written in 1829, long before modern debates on capital punishment, Hugo's message remains timeless: that mercy is more powerful than revenge and that justice must always be guided by compassion.
The summary of another book is finished. What did you learn from this book? Have you read it before? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe and like the channel.